And welcome everybody. How you doing? Rob Mullins here with the Planetmullins Podcast, and I've got a special guest today that's an incredible bass player, transitioned into producer, and even drum programming now he's gotten into. He's played with just lots of big acts throughout his career, such as Air Supply and Ronnie Laws and the Crusaders, and currently now touring with Pablo Cruise, which is amazing. Say hello, everybody, to the incredibly famous, lovely, and talented Mr. Larry Antonino.
Hello. How y'all doing?
Hey, Larry, before we get started on the show, I got to put in my sponsor's commercial real quick. So I want to thank bodyrejuvenationcandles.com for sponsoring. This is their third podcast interview of mine that they've sponsored. Candles with a purpose to emit light and to moisturize and rejuvenate the skin as a lotion. They're incredibly therapeutic for dry skin. You just melt them for a while and then put the wax on your hand and let it soak in, rub it around and wash it off, and you'll notice your skin will get a lot better. I use these for my skin. I love them, and you'll love them too. bodyrejuvenationcandles.com. Okay, so Larry.
Cool.
Hey man.
Hey, my brother.
So I just saw on your Facebook page today that you're part of the Mark Towner Williams new project. And for people who don't know who that is, it's John Williams, the film composer's son, right?
Right. And the other son is Joseph Williams, who's the lead singer for Toto. So
wow.
They're brothers, and they have a sister. So John Williams has 3 children. And Mark is incredibly talented, plays drums. We toured with Air Supply, where he played drums, but he's a writer, plays all the instruments, including trumpet, and composer, arranger. Very talented guy. So glad that he brought me on board this latest project of his. We wrote some songs, and all remote because of COVID. So we had to do all the writing and the bass parts, all the background vocal arrangements, everything in our separate studios, and he mixed it at his house.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
This is something I've noticed about you because we've been friends a really long time. And I don't know how you manage to do this, but you're always somehow in the middle of some kind of celebrity cool. Like that, I haven't known you to really go through many down times in your career. And if there are any, we can talk about them later in the show. But for now, you just always seem to just be turning up with these amazing projects. Like I remember years ago, after we had met, you were involved in a Tom Hanks film, and it was called That Thing You Do. And that made you super famous as a musician. I remember when that movie came out and there you were, it was like, oh my God, I know that guy. So why don't you tell our viewers and stuff, how did you happen to get that gig?
Well, it's really interesting, because we're doing sessions all the time, working for people. Used to be called on spec, where speculation, if something happened, you did get paid. So, a lot of times you didn't get paid, but you were enjoying working with these different people. Mm-hmm. So one of those people for me was Mark Wolfson. And we did a lot of recording at studios out here in the San Fernando Valley, Entourage, you name them, we've been in them. And, as songwriter partners as well, but he's a wonderful producer. And he had just finished being the musical supervisor for Philadelphia, right? Tom Hanks' film just before this. So they asked him to do That Thing You Do also, music supervisor. So he came in and he started calling me to play on these songs. And Tom Hanks wrote and directed this movie. It's based in 1964. It's kind of like an American Beatles story, but it was like a one-hit wonders sort of story. And I play the replacement bass player who comes in when they finally get to LA from Erie, Pennsylvania. And it all happens very quickly. They played the Hollywood Television Showcase, which is like the Ed Sullivan Show,
Right. Yeah.
So here they can't find their guy. So Tom Hanks, Mr. White, calls his buddy, Scott Wolfman Pell, to sit in
And that's you, right?
And I'm like the ringer, whatever. So I had played on the soundtrack, so that's me playing bass on the record, which we got a gold record pretty quick, and it just went over 1 million. So they sent me platinum now, which is I hear it in the supermarkets. It's just really great. But it was a great experience. So due to the fact that I was a studio musician, just doing another day at the office, they were looking for a guy to play this role. They had auditioned actors and musicians and couldn't find the guy. So Gary Getzman comes in with the camera because Mark says, "What about Larry?
Right.
He can play this character in the film."
Right.
And
right.
I go, "I'm not an actor." So he gave me a little piece of the script, and he got the camera. And I said the line and played a little bass lick, and he showed it to Tom, and then they approved me for the part. And they said, "Okay, scripts FedEx.
Wow.
Tomorrow at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
You're going to this place to get fitted and measured for these outfit costumes." And I'm just going, "Is this freaking happening? I can't believe it."
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I'll never forget the line that you said, because in the movie they do say, well, we've got a new bass player, and then they go, and it's this guy right here, and then it's you, and then you go, bup, 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 I think I can handle it.
Yeah. And I'm not that cocky in real life.
No, you're right. But the way that it came off in the film was so great, and that's one of the weird things about Hollywood and the movies and TV, that both of us probably have had similar experiences, where the last place that a casting director would look to for a bass player in a movie is at a bass player that's on the film. Like, why they didn't call you first, it doesn't make any sense at all.
They're thinking casting, that's it. Yeah. And actually, quick side note, when I was to do this little solo thing in the film,
right,
they were like, "Okay, here we go." And I go, "Aren't you going to plug the bass in?" And they go, "No, you're just going to do it in post." I said, "No, this is like a thing I'm going to improvise right now." And it's not like I can just, I can learn it, I guess, but I really do play the bass. So they took a cable out and they went into a direct box and hid the direct box.
Oh, okay.
It had to look like it went right into an amp, and that's what you see is what you hear. So that just shows you what you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, we had one other television thing I wanted to get into is when we were both working on the Grey's Anatomy show.
Right.
Right. And it was really similar kinds of stuff with Grey's Anatomy, because they just weren't used to working with musicians at all.
No, right. Kevin McKidd, great actor.
Yeah, actually, Kevin was the, on that musical episode. Do you remember the name of the episode that we did, or were we on 2 episodes? I can't remember.
I might have been split in 2. I can't remember the title, but yeah, it was good. And, 2 different worlds colliding again, right. But we made it work, and you were great.
No, we totally did. I remember
it was time.
Yeah, I remember it was amazing, because that producer came up and he was giving us some direction and stuff. And I remember both of us said, "Well, we're here playing these songs, and we both have songs. I mean, we're writers with plenty of songs, and here we are in the thing." And he said, "No. We don't want any music out of you guys." Oh, okay.
That was weird. Right.
Yeah, we're the musicians here, and we don't want any music out of you. Okay. I get it's almost like a Hollywood logic that happens.
Yep.
That, the behind the scenes kind of things that, none of it makes air, but it's just interesting to hear, your perspective on some of these things, because you've just done so much stuff by now,
Yeah. Well, you hear about guys that get into film, like Danny Elfman, from Oingo Boingo, and then he just gets into the writing. He knows how to really fashion these certain songs for scenes. So not every musician can see what it's supposed to feel like with looking at picture and then write to it. They can have songs, and then somebody may discover a song because they're looking for that type of song for a scene. But to sit there and look at a piece of picture that's a moving picture, which is a film, and go, "Well, I'm going to do this kind of thing here to get that emotion." There's a whole school about how to write to film and television. So
man,
it's not for every writer, not for every composer that does any style of music. So some cross over, and sometimes your songs just get picked because it's out there in the world, and they just they're looking for that jam and tune, and they discover your song because you got it up on a site somewhere, and they just license it. You can get lucky like that too.
Right. I mean, that happened to me a couple of years ago with my version of America the Beautiful.
Right.
A Jingle House called me up, and there was a bank in Texas and his ad agency somewhere in Dallas or something wanted to license America the Beautiful. And we did that deal quick and dirty in about 10 minutes. And, I got a nice check out of that. So that was cool.
There you go.
Well, let's go back to the early Larry, when you were first getting going in music and stuff, because I met you in the 90s and I think 92. And, but you're not originally from LA. Like, when did you come from Santa Cruz to LA, and how did you get in the scene and all that?
Yeah. Born in California. So all, full Californian. And actually born in Fresno, which the San Joaquin Valley. And all I remember was it was hot and there was nothing to do. And then when I was 5, my dad moved to Santa Cruz because he got a job at Lockheed, right?
Oh, wow.
And so all of a sudden we're a stone's throw from the beach, literally. We could just walk, and we were playing. And then when I grew up and became a musician, I realized, wow, I'm like, there's the Doobie Brothers walking around. There's all these clubs to play. And it was a wonderful place to kind of, just sink in and really grab onto the scene. Musically, there's so many places, diverse styles of playing. And so you learned all the tunes, and you started writing and forming bands and doing all the stuff. And it was great. And I hit a little wall, small town, moved to Monterey, Carmel for a couple of years, and then came to LA in 1986, which is when I started playing with Ronnie Laws, which is how our connection.
Right, that's how we met is through Ronnie Laws. And for those of you that don't know about the Laws family, they're an incredible, amazing family from Texas. You got Ronnie Laws on tenor sax, and then his older brother Hubert Laws, who I'm in his band 25 years on.
Toured all over the world with him.
And then you've got Eloise Laws, which Eloise is a Tony Award-winning actress and singer.
Right.
And Deborah Laws, and I mean, there's Laws. So, Larry, there's a funny story about when we were at Indigo Ranch on that first album date that we did when we were working with Ronnie, and you were in there to play an upright bass track in the ISO booth. We're on the top of the mountains in Malibu, like way up high at a studio that's mostly famous rock bands, like the Eagles were in there and all these other bands. But, do you mind telling that story real quick? I love that story, the Indigo Ranch Larry story.
Yeah, it was the Brotherhood album, Ronnie Laws, which you wrote for and did a lot of arranging, beautiful playing. William Bubba Bryant played drums on that. Right. Greg T. Cooper, good guys. Chris Brunt engineered, great session. And that day I was in this booth that had cork, for the sound all over. And the upright bass had a real hot mic on it, some kind of Neumann, and we're playing along, and we take a little break, and you'd hear like a little something hitting something, a little in the headphones. It sounded very loud.
Right.
And it kept happening every so often, like a tunk. And Rob's like, "What is that? What is going on?" And then they all came in there, and they realized that there were termites inside the cork that was the soundproofing, and it was landing on the upright bass, and the mic was picking it up.
Oh my God.
We were thinking, a good thing we didn't leave the bass overnight for the next day's session. It would have just been strings laying there.
Wow.
Not fun.
Termites in the cork in the studio. Well, Indigo Ranch was an older studio, even at that. Yep. I mean, it had been there for years and years. And
W.C. Fields and John Barrymore used to hang out and just party up there. They say if you dig in the dirt, you'll find whiskey bottles all over the place. Those guys hung out.
Yeah, they were hanging out in a big way. So when you came to LA, was Ronnie Laws's getting that gig? Because Ronnie was such a huge multi-platinum artist. Was that like the thing that launched you in LA, or was it something?
It was. I didn't, you don't know anybody when you move here. You're just living on a prayer, and you show up with a Toyota and a bass, and you go, I hope I can do this. I think I'm really good, you got to take that chance. I was sleeping on a couch in Van Nuys for 6 months. And basically, he gave me the chance. And so Tom Fletcher was engineering that new record, Mirror Town. And I had met him, and he was like, you should come down here. And so I got all Ronnie's records, all of his cassettes, LPs. I learned every song he ever recorded. So I showed up at this first rehearsal or audition.
Uh-huh.
And I knew the whole new Mirror Town album. So we were running that. Then what about this song and that song and this? And I just had it in my hands. And they were going, oh, okay, preparation. That's looking, he's not just showing up and fluffing this thing.
Right.
And then they go, okay, Ronnie, after about half an hour, he goes, take a bass solo. But we were playing Always There.
Uh-huh.
And all of a sudden it just opens up to drums and bass. And I just built this thing and went, into my thumbing and the funk and the stuff that I love, because I was listening to all the, Louis Johnson and Earth, Wind and Fire. I grew up on all that stuff. So Larry Graham. And so I learned, so after that we took a break and I'm standing outside and, Ronnie Laws is like 9 feet tall. And hey, Larry, I look up at him and he looks down at me, he goes, you got the gig. And I went, oh my God, I got the gig. I couldn't believe it,
Wow.
Yeah, man, it was so special. And we, all the road dates and, and then we made that beautiful record, one of my favorite records that I played on. And I love your song Nadine on that record.
Yeah, it was fun just kind of getting into that whole world with those guys, because the Ronnie Laws thing led to the Hubert Laws thing.
Right.
And the Hubert Laws thing for me led into the Crusaders thing. And the Crusaders thing led into the Preston Glass world.
Big time producer, writer.
So all of a sudden, getting called to do this and that. But I remember Ronnie was so nonchalant about being a recording artist and being this multi-platinum guy. He was just so used to being at the top. He was at the top for so long that he would call me. He would call me in the morning before we were going to go to Indigo Ranch, and I would hear the shower water. It'd be like, this is a little weird. I mean, I'm in, Ronnie's in the shower, taking a shower on the phone, calling me, and he's saying, come up with some chords to this melody line that I just did. And he would sing these melody lines in the shower before the session, and I would have to sketch out some chords and then show up there, and that's how that song Brotherhood got created.
Oh man, yeah, great song, man.
Totally nutty. So, this is I ask almost all of my music people that come on the show about their best gig and their worst gig. So, you know, and I know you've had a lot of really great gigs, because I saw a picture of you on Facebook about a year ago, and it's you sitting with the Pablo Cruise guys in this beautiful little 7-passenger jet, everybody sipping their fine drink.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It's a private airplane.
I know. It wasn't every gig, believe me, but it happened every so often. And that's, I feel like I'm really in a band. Pablo Cruise is a band. And you get to really, stretch out and play. The songs are very well arranged, and there's a lot of vocals to sing too, so it keeps you busy. And they let me stretch out in the middle of the set, which a lot of bands don't let you do. So you get the fans, and it's been 10 years now, Ben, in Pablo Cruise. And as a matter of fact, we're releasing a single, I think September 4th. It's called Breathe. It's a beautiful new song that I co-wrote with the guys.
Cool.
So that'll be all over the place on Sony, being distributed through the Orchard and all over the place. So you can find it. Brand new Pablo Cruise song, first one in many, many years.
Yeah, it's just great to see you, at that level, because, I've been in your life as a studio guy and a personal friend all these decades. And I want to share with everybody what one of our worst gig experiences was. And, so this is crazy. And I can't believe I'm going to tell this story, but it's G-rated.
Tell it, man.
It's G-rated. So Larry and I are touring with a funk guy named Craig T. Cooper. And Craig T. was Johnny Gill's musical director. And in the 90s, man, I mean, that whole black R&B, Johnny Gill was like God. You know, it was just amazing. And Craig T was out doing these kind of like Barry White-ish kind of quasi R. Kelly kind of tunes, you know, a couple of mellow chords and then a lot of like prancing around and this and that. So anyway, you and I got hired to go play the Gym Theater in Detroit with Craig T. And it was just a one-off. Like we were flying out there and then we had to go to the sound check and then we had to wait. You remember it was like 5 bands and we were the headliners, so we were the last band, and the whole thing was supposed to start at 7 and it started at 10. Like it just, everybody kept, and the opening acts just kept on going right past the top of the hour, just another half hour of and another act and another. So finally around like 1 o'clock in the morning, we get up on stage and we've been sitting in the dressing room for 6 hours and we play the show. It goes over great. Everything is wonderful. But we have this 5 a.m. call where we have to be ready to go to the airport to fly back to LA on a 7 a.m. flight. And, you know, when you don't get any sleep before you even go on a tour, because I remember in those years, especially, I would never have time to sleep. And then you have like 40 minutes, you know, the gig ends at 3:30 in the morning. And then you got about 40 minutes to try and chill and read your email and this and that. So we go back to the airport the next morning, and you want to pick it up from there, or do you want me to just tell you?
Well, you go ahead and finish.
Okay, so, and we're tired. Larry and I got our carry-ons, we've checked our luggage, and we're just burnt, man. We're just like, oh my God, it's 6 a.m. So let's just get on this flight. We're going to fly from Detroit to LAX. We're going to be able to sleep. We're in the same row together. Larry's in the window, and I'm in the aisle seat, and there's this lady sitting in between us. And, you know, the stewardesses, I guess you can't say that now. You have to say flight attendant or something. But anyway, we had the announcements. Okay, everybody put on your seatbelt. Everybody put your tray in the upright position. Then all of a sudden, Larry and I both are smelling this incredibly foul smell, like just horrible. And I had my eyes closed. I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, and I'm thinking, you know, somebody farted, but this is way worse than somebody farting. And then you looked over at me and you just had this look of horror on your face. I'm just like, what the heck is going on? And so we both look at the lady that's in between us, and because that's where the smell is coming from. And I remember asking her, I said, are you okay? And she goes, no, I'm not. My colostomy bag just broke.
And that's when the hazmat suits guys came in.
And then it was like, I'm right up there pressing the button for the flight attendant, going, bing, bing, bing. And I asked the lady too then, do you have a spare bag? And she goes, no, I didn't bring one. And I mean, wow, that was crazy. And yeah, the hazmat guys, everybody off the plane, take everybody
off the plane.
And we're so tired. We were so crispy. And they cleaned that entire plane. It took about 2.5, 3 hours. So around noon,
with no sleep,
we're getting back into the same 2 seats and wondering, you know, okay, the lady's not going to fly with us, thank God.
No, they nuked it with something, so we're fine. We're still alive today.
We're still alive today. But that was just one of the weirdest.
I felt really terrible for her, you know, and things happen, man, and you know, you gotta just flow with it, man. A lot of stuff happens on the road. We were at this Pablo Cruise gig. We were playing on this racetrack where it was mud and oil. You know, this cars, the race cars that spin out and do all that stuff. And set the stage in the middle, and the grandstands were way over on the other side, looking into the field.
Okay.
And it rained and rained and rained. We had to cancel the show because of the rain, but all our cars were parked next to the stage. So it was just mud and oil, right? You couldn't even get to the cars. So we had to take the backstage towels, you know, the white ones, and put them over our shoes and duct tape them to make our own little boots so we could walk to the car. Yeah. And then the wheels were just spinning out. And then some guy shows up with a tractor with a big hook, and he's like going to put it on the grill of a Malibu. I said, you're just going to rip the grill, the whole bumper off the front. So we got all these guys, and they pushed us out of the mud, and we got out of there. Man, it gets crazy on the road, man. You never know what the heck's going to happen.
Well,
Really don't.
yeah, I interviewed Stanley Barons, the harmonica player with War, the other day, and he was telling some crazy stories about things that happened, like in their dressing room and when they're traveling and stuff. And it really is a lot like having the surrogate family that you're in that's not your family. But when you go all the way, like Hubert and Land Richards and John Leftwich and I all went to India last summer.
Yeah.
And dude, that was about 32 hours flying.
Wow.
And you're sitting next, like I'm sitting next to Land Richards for 32 hours.
Wow.
And luckily, Land is one of the funniest, most entertaining, well-prepared. He travels, he's got 3 separate phones. One is his music library, and one is just a direct line to the wife. And then the other line is the business line. He's got all this drum lug nuts, and he carries all his hardware. So we're trying to get into India, and he's got about 90 little pieces of hardware that all look like he's a black terrorist coming in to bomb.
Oh my God.
And we're just sitting at security, but he's all prepared because he's taken pictures on his iPhone from like Sweetwater and Drum Workshop and saying, no, this connects to this, and I use this in my job and this and that. So
he's genius.
Yeah, he's really smart. Well, because of the fact that you do so many different things, do you have a favorite thing that you do? Because I know you sing your butt off, you play your butt off. Now you're into writing and producing. Was that a conscious transition that you made recently, or how did that happen?
Well, it's sort of evolved, Rob, over time, because we've all had to record our own songs. We started writing way back in the day, and you couldn't call this big studio and hire that engineer. We had no money. So what do? We buy a little Porta studio.
Right. I remember the Porta studio, yeah.
Remember those things? And it had 4 tracks.
Like 4-track, yeah.
I had a little drumulator, Emu, made it. It's this little thing, and it had some pretty cool drums. So you could program the arrangement in that thing, and then lay it on a mono track, cut a bass, and then you had 2 more tracks to do more stuff. So you put a keyboard part down and maybe a guitar. Sometimes you bounce that rhythm section to stereo and then back onto 2 tracks. Then you have 2 more tracks.
Right.
Do vocals, like a melody and then a harmony. So you could work it out. There's a DBS or whatever it's called, DBX. There was a little thing that you hit the button and it stopped the hiss, because if you took
that was the Dolby. The Dolby.
That's right. I forgot about it. And so you figured it out to where it didn't sound all hissy, and it was close enough to represent what you thought a record should sound like, and hopefully people would like it and want to take you to the next level. That was the whole point, right? So I learned a lot about all that stuff back then, and then as the gear got better, I went to Cubase. I got one of those Roland JV80s. And I was able to have, remember those things? I had separate outputs for the drums, the Rhodes.
They're amazing.
I played some bass stuff in there because it saved me an audio track. I mean, you do what you got to do, and you get the song done. And so then went to Logic. So I've been working with Logic for many years, and all the plugins are so amazing, and the samples utilizing Contact, which is a wonderful sound library, and the Waves stuff is incredible. I love all that Chris Lord-Alge plugins.
Yeah, the studio plugin.
They have one for drums, bass, vocals, and guitar. So you just plug something in, and you go through those different settings, and you will find a wonderful tone. And I break all the drums down. I just did a drum program last night, and I put a kick track, and I play the kick the whole time through, then do the snare, tom-toms, do the cymbal crashes, all separately treated with different plugins. So it sounds like a kit might, use different reverbs for that or whatever, different compression for the snare than the kick. So that's how you get it. You just got to be inventive and be creative, because it's just the Logic drums. And I found a couple of kits that worked. Some of the cymbals on that particular drum set sounded better, so I used those for the crash, that kick on that, and the snare for that on that drum set over there. So you just kind of got to know what you're working with and what you want to hear,
Right.
what you're going for, and then you put it together. And it ends up sounding really good. And you're going, yeah, I worked, 8 hours straight and now I'm really happy. So there's a payoff.
Well, that's part of the whole creative process that just always, at the end of creating an album, it always puts a smile on my face. And, as you were talking about, as we got going in LA, not having any money, I had been on an indie label called Nova Records, and I had done 3 albums for those guys, and they owed me more than $200,000. And I remember going into the guy's office there in Westwood after I had hired a lawyer and I had calculated. And remember, we were both using copyright management with Dude McLean in those days out of Nashville.
CMI.
And they had done a whole audit of everything, and it was 200 and something grand. And I walked into the guy and I said, "You owe me 200 grand." And he said, and he looked right at me and he said, "Tough. You just need to go back to Denver." And that's what he said. Now, at this point, I'd had 3 hit albums, all on Billboard. I was homeless. I had no money. I was living in Huntington Beach, and I had a JV-80, that keyboard you're talking about. So I had this little mixer that was in that studio there in Huntington Beach. And, as we've been talking about different recording methods and gear and money and using, whatever you got, I had this thing called the Boss BX4 mixer.
Right.
And it had 9-volt battery as the power. There was no wire, no AC adapter. So I ran my SE30, that was powering that JV-80. I ran the JV-80 outputs into 2 inputs on the Boss mixer, and I had 2 piano mics going in the other. So it was a 4-channel subbed out to 2 going to a DAT player. And that's how I made the Music for Lovers album, which is still my most popular album that I've ever done, was just with this. I think those mixers were about like $60 or something. And, it's funny that both of us love that Roland JV-80 because, man, the sounds in there, it was so 90s. Like, you just pull up stuff and it just always sounded great in there. But anyway, man.
Awesome. Yes, we get it done.
Yeah, we find a way. So if you had any advice as we wrap up here today for aspiring musicians or producers or even actors, since we kind of delved into that side, what would your advice be?
My advice is to follow what is getting you excited. What is something you wake up and go, I don't know how to do that maybe, but I'm going to figure it out. Something is getting me excited about it. If it's a long drawn out thing where you think you got to, because people will go to classes. I can't wait to get to class to learn how to do that so I can get to that thing. Whatever's driving you in a positive way that you feel, it shouldn't feel like work in a way. Music and entertainment business, acting, any of the creative arts, it shouldn't feel like work, even though you're working harder than any of these cats out there. You're working very, very hard, putting in a lot more hours, but you love it. So if you love it, it doesn't feel like work. Kind of saying the same thing a couple different ways. That's my advice. Figure out what that is that's telling you to go that way, and then you will love the journey to where you're going.
Yeah, I think that's great, man. And I can't thank you enough for coming on my show today and for being such a good friend all of these decades. And then tell us once again, this new release with Pablo Cruise is coming out when?
Yeah, September 4th, and it's called Breathe, and it's a beautiful up-tempo. You love it.
And that's worldwide on Sony, right?
Sony, yep.
Okay, and then if people wanted to find you and send you an email or a threatening letter or something.
Yeah, anyone can just email me at larryantonino@gmail.com. And hit me on Facebook, message, whatever. That's my deal.
You're on Facebook too?
Yes.
All right, Lair. Well, I'm looking forward to us getting a chance to do a bunch more music together. We've done a lot, and we'll do more into the future. I
can't wait, Rob. The best stuff on my record is the stuff you played on, my man. You brought that stuff to life so big time. I really appreciate you as a friend and as a comrade, and you know, we're out there doing it, buddy. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you, Larry. Have a good rest of your day, and cheers.